Ordinary habits, extraordinary life is about mastering simple things in everyday life to expand your views, access more of your untapped potential, and evolve ordinary habits into an extraordinary life. Here is your host, Maria Bailey.
Our guest today is a woman of action, a storyteller, an expert at nominating women into organizations so they get the recognition they deserve. Jill Teitjen is an American electrical engineer by profession, a consultant, women's advocate, author, and speaker. She is one of the top historians in the country on scientific and technical women. Jill has written or co-authored 10 books and more than 100 technical papers, including award-winning and locally best-selling book, Her Story, a timeline of the women who changed America. Jill was inducted into the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame in 2010 and the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame in 2019. She was one of the first 10 women to receive an engineering degree in Virginia. Ambitious and energetic, Jill found her way in a male-dominated world and opened the door, pioneering and leading women into the STEM field to become the professional possibility it is today for women in the science, technology, engineering, and math professions. Jill, welcome. We're so honored to have you here with us today.
It's so much fun to be here today, Maria.
Okay, so what is your motto? What to accomplish everything that you have in your life?
Well, it's kind of two things. And one of them is, why not me? And then if not me, who will do it? And so that really frames a lot of what I do. And I've learned, as you talked about in the introduction about these nominations that I've done. I was at the White House receiving Admiral Hopper's National Medal of Technology in 1991, a nomination I had worked on for 2 years to get her that medal. And there I am at the White House Rose Garden looking around going, there aren't any other women here. Where are those women? There actually was one. She was getting a National Medal of Science. But where are the women? Why aren't they here? This was 1991. I know that's now 30 years ago, but to me, that was very immediate. Why aren't there women getting these medals? Why aren't there women being recognized? And so I had learned how to do nominations, and I said, okay, so if nobody else is going to do it, because obviously they haven't been doing them,
right.
If there's no one else here, then I'm going to do it.
So we have a perspective, right? Like there's like, well, why not me, right? And if not me, who then? Where did you get that idea from? Where do you think you got that idea from?
That's a really interesting question. I think that it's a combination of how I was raised and the activities that I participated in as a kid. So I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and we were always told to do our best. That was what we were instructed. It didn't matter if that wasn't the best. It didn't matter if we didn't win the race. It didn't matter if we weren't first prize. It didn't matter if we played the violin in the orchestra, which I did for all those years. And I wasn't first chair because actually I wasn't very good, but I did the best that I could do. And then I was a Girl Scout. And being a Girl Scout, today it's courage, confidence, and character. But I think at that point in time, it was self-reliance and self-confidence. Plus, I was always the shortest. And actually in my schools growing up, it wasn't that there was an award for the shortest, but they actually always voted someone, how there's somebody most likely to succeed. Well, I was the shortest. I was voted the shortest, and so there always was this. And Mom said, well, You just have to remember that good things come in small packages. So some combination of these things, good things come in small packages. Always do your best in everything that you do. And then the self-reliance and self-confidence to get me to the point where when I look around and see that something needs to be done and nobody else is doing it, I don't have any problem stepping up and doing it because it needs to get done.
I think what I'm appreciating so far is, well, it seems like you did receive encouragement and guidance, which, to our listeners, some of us may have had that, and some of us they may not have been as clear. Maybe they didn't come from our parents, but maybe there was a teacher. So already I'm perhaps forming my idea of, what makes Jill, the extraordinary person she is like there's something significant about the encouragement that you received. So that's kind of like the first key. Where did the encouragement come from, but also then what you did with it, right? So, okay, so your mom said, and, do your best. So if we go back, like what helped you enact that do your best? Or either, I guess the question is a little bit of like, how did you enact doing your best, or what got in the way of learning? Your mom says something, but then how did you actually live into that? What were the pros and cons?
Well, the other thing that I think is important that I was thinking about as you made those remarks is I'm the oldest of 4 children. And I was also always told that because I was the oldest, I was responsible. So it's not only the encouragement to do my best that mom and dad, by the way, instilled in me. And I do have a little story about doing your best from my father that I'll tell you in a minute, but also this responsibility that I was responsible. And if I'm responsible, then that means that I have to see that things get taken care of. So I came home from my first year in college at the University of Virginia. It's not called freshman, it's called first year in college, with mononucleosis. And I also came home with 2 C's, which was not really very acceptable in our family. And I had the conversation with my father about these 2 C's. And he said, and I was very sick at this time. I mean, I came home from mono and I was just in bed for a couple of weeks. And he said to me, well, did you learn anything in those classes? And so, although people have since told me that my interpretation is not necessarily the right interpretation, the way I interpreted it was, well, if you only get a C, then you probably didn't learn what you needed to learn in those classes. And I really don't think this is acceptable, and you probably ought not to do it again. And of course, I didn't. But so for what I heard him telling me was that I had not done my best in those classes, and that I wasn't going to get the tools and the knowledge and the skills and the information that I needed to be successful in life unless I actually did do my best and did do the things that I knew I was capable of doing.
Actually, I think the way I'm receiving it, though, I'm so touched that your dad at least didn't make it about that there's something wrong with you. I hear it actually more of, I want you to succeed. And in order for you to succeed, you need to have the right tools. And I'm concerned that you may not have received the tools to succeed. That's a different orientation, I think, than you're a bad Jill, because you got to see, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy to fall into that trap.
Yeah, Dad was a teacher. Yeah, he taught extension. He was an engineer at NASA at the Langley Research Center, which is the setting of the movie Hidden Figures. But he taught a lot of extension courses. That's what they were called then, for Virginia Tech and George Washington University. In fact, I would say he was a natural teacher. And so the way that we were raised was really full of encouragement. There was never anything bad. It was looking at the positive. And you're right. It was, and I've never actually expressed it this way to anybody else before, that the skills and the tools and the knowledge that he wanted to make sure that I had that he was encouraging me to do it for that reason. Because that's what I think it was. It was never, well, Jill, you got 2 C's and that's probably going to damage your college GPA and you'll never get the job you want and you won't get into graduate school or blah, 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 any of that kind of stuff. That wasn't the way it was presented to me at all, or the way I interpreted it.
Mm-hmm. I get such a sense, and again, it could have been passed down from your parents, and who knows where they got that sense of responsibility, right? Like you says, well, I'm responsible, and as the oldest of the 4, I'm responsible, and if something needs to get done, well, why not me, right? So do you have a story to tell us? Like how does, again, I'm trying to, like, what I'm trying to do is to turn it into the enactment, the habit. So how do you live into how does, like, say earlier in your years, like when you were in college, or again, you're studying engineer, you're one of the first 10 women, you are faced with all this, how, what behaviors, how did you actually, what did you have to do to live into this this belief that, yeah, like, I'm responsible and I need to do my best?
Well, I think there's a combination of things. And one of them is that when I make a commitment to someone, I follow through on that commitment. So if I tell you that I'm going to email you, or I tell you that I'm going, these are basic things. I tell you I'm going to follow up with you because we're going to have lunch together, and I made a commitment that I would do that. I do that. And it amazes me. I actually cannot get over it. The number of people who say, oh yeah, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And I never hear from them. And it's on them. It's not on me. So making a commitment and following through on a commitment, and then meeting deadlines. I spent my career as an electrical engineer in the electric utility business. That's what I did before I wrote even while I was writing books. So as an expert witness, where you're dealing with attorneys and you're dealing with regulatory commissions, public service commissions in states around the country, and you have deadlines. You have to have your reports filed by a deadline. You have to have your testimony filed by a deadline. Everything has to be done by a deadline. And people actually don't believe it now. I say, I will have you something by Friday. So it's a combination of a commitment and a deadline. Not only do you have it from me, but you have it from me usually Thursday, but it's not only Friday. So it's meeting commitments and always following through and always making those deadlines. I mean, because deadlines to me, through my 45-year career, they were given to me, but they were sacrosanct. If you don't have your testimony filed by the date that you are told by the regulatory commission, you're non-compliant. I mean, that's right. There are fees, there are fines, there are penalties. I mean, that you can't. I mean, you don't ever do it. It's better to file crap than it is to not file. But I don't do that either. I meet my commitments and I meet my deadlines. And so I think that's how it gets enacted. And in college, I haven't thought of this in years and years and years. So in college, I was a grader, meaning I graded papers for professors, and I happened to grade papers for the thermodynamics professor. I took the basic thermodynamics course and the advanced thermodynamics course, and I loved it. And I became his grader. And then I ran for the treasurer, I think it was, of the engineering school, or the secretary of the engineering school. And I made, this is way before computer graphics, and my little posters were in my handwriting, which, by the way, is terrible. And it says, oh, and you'll like this. What did it say? I promise to do my best. And Dr. Morton, the thermodynamics professor, actually told me, or maybe his son who was there at the same time, or maybe his class, I can't remember. Well, if that's what she says, you should vote for her because that's what she does. And so it's best, commitment, deadlines, all of that together. So I hadn't thought of that in years.
So how does that, because if we go to the ordinary habits, again, my thesis or my theory is that they're the simple things, right? Like here you are. How many women have you inducted already?
I've nominated more than 50. It's probably closer to maybe 75 women into all kinds of university awards, state halls of fame, national halls of fame, professional awards, national medals, all kinds of things.
Okay, so that's what you've done on that area. Then also, again, you how do you say it, trailblazed the way for women in the STEM field. And so so for you to do that, what I'm trying to connect it is like, it's the simple things to be this extraordinary woman that you are and how you've led the way. I think we're kind of here. It's like, well, do your best. And it can sound trite. It's like, well, just do your, pat in the back. Oh, do your best. So maybe we can get into, it's like, well, what does that mean?
Like, all right. Well, all right. So I think the first thing is you have to show up.
Okay, but you know what? Actually, let me do it a different way. Because instead of, I find that it's more connecting if we hear a story rather than you tell us, because then it's all conceptual. I'm curious, imagining you in the early years where, and I've seen the pictures, by the way. So if you as a listener are interested, I mean, just really just Google Jill Teitjen, and you'll see the pictures where this tiny little powerhouse woman with 7 other men or 15 other men around her. And she does not, I mean, she may look little, but she does not feel little. So for example, in that moment, when you are in that board, right, or when you are surrounded by what it seemed I don't want to say the opposition, but something that you need to be big for, you need to do your best. How do you either organize in yourself, or what do you do in order to be able to have that attitude of do your best?
Well, you always prepare. So if, for example, on one of the corporate boards that I'm on, and I'm getting ready to go to a meeting, you had better believe that I read everything that I'm provided beforehand. And I think about everything that I've read to prepare questions for things that I don't understand, or that I want clarification of, or that I just need more information for. And then it goes back to what I was saying before. And then I show up. I am there. I am listening. I am participating. I am providing. Yes. I ask questions. I sit on the compensation committee for Georgia Transmission in Georgia, and I provide information. Here's what I'm thinking. I mean, for many companies.
Give us an example. Actually, let's make it more real. Give us an example of a moment where you were there, you in a meeting. What meeting was it? And I guess, is it a choice that you say, I'm going to participate, or like what was that experience like? Give us a little bit of you're a storyteller. Tell us the story.
I'm a story. So it was of concern to me for a long time, actually. And I hope this is along the lines of what you want, but it's what I'm thinking of. So I'm on the compensation committee, and there's a discussion about 401ks. 401ks, you have to, as an employee, you have to actually sign, at this point in time, you have to sign up in order to participate in the 401k. And so I was very concerned that young people weren't signing up voluntarily to participate in a 401k retirement program because they're 20 years old or 30 years old or whatever they are, and they're not thinking about when they're 40 years old and 50 years old and 60-year old and getting ready to retire. And so I actually suggested that we get to a point where you have to opt out of a 401k. So that means when an employee comes to work for Georgia Transmission, they have to fill out all this paperwork. You spend the first half day of, well, in the old days, you used to spend the first half day of your job filling out all this paperwork. Now I think you do it before you ever get there. But and part of what you do is you decide if you're going to participate in this retirement program. Well, if you have to opt out, that means that you are actually already in the program. And I said to these people, this is something I'm concerned about. I think this is one of the things we need to think about. In fact, I recommend that we actually implement this as a way for these people, these employees, in spite of themselves, to do something that's good over the long term, over their career, so that when they're ready to retire, this money will have built up for them. Yeah, they have to not have it in their paycheck because it has to be taken out for the 401k, but then they don't miss it.
Yeah.
They don't see it. It builds up and it's ready for them for retirement. And that idea was accepted. So
Okay,
that's
so
how
let
it works.
me okay. So again, if I'm watching a movie, there's this, meeting, a board comprised mostly of men, and here you are again, they can't see you, but you're a tiny powerhouse woman. And you're advocating for something you believe. What I'm seeing though, in your passion, right? Like so you're prepared, like you said, you're prepared, and then you're listening, you're participating. The nugget that I got and what I want to get to is what allows you to show up in that way, to participate and advocate in your preparation. Was it something? What did you connect to? My hypothesis is that in your preparation, you connect to something that you care about, that you're willing to go to bat for.
Yes, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. And I think maybe that's what it is. It's the passion and the causes that I care about. And like what I was saying with Admiral Hopper before, I mean, how could she be the only woman there? And so that, and
this
was just,
by the way, for our listeners, this was the award that you were receiving
for her at the White House Rose Garden.
Yeah.
At the White House Rose Garden from the first President Bush, which I didn't say, in 1991. And so I'm willing to do a lot. I'm not going to say whatever it takes, because sometimes maybe that's not appropriate, or it's not legal, or it's not whatever, but I'm willing to do whatever I think is reasonable in order to see that things that I think need to happen.
Okay, but I guess now what I'm sniffing is but why? And what moves you? What is the thing that? Okay, great. We got it. You got a machine that can rally and get. I was watching an interview that they did and somebody was saying oh, no, I don't have but it is sort of if you have an idea, you just, there's nothing that can stop you, right? You just do it. So, okay, you have the machine, but what fuels that machine? Because we might not have that machine, right? We might not be Jill. I don't know that I have that machinery. I'll just do and research and stuff. But maybe I can connect with you at the level of what fuels you. And then I will put that fuel in my own machine. You see what I mean?
All right. So what fuels me? I wanted to attend. It's a combination, and I think I'm going to get all three of them. There are three parts of it.
Okay.
I wanted to attend the University of Virginia. That was my choice when I was ready to attend college. And my guidance counselor said, don't bother applying. You won't get accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And that was bad advice. And I applied early decision, and I was accepted. And that's number one. I'm going to do all three of them, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Because I think it's just going to work better for me. But I didn't apply to the engineering school at the University of Virginia. I applied to the College of Arts and Sciences because I thought I wanted to be a math major. That's what I loved. I love math. I don't like the sciences, but I like math.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the halfway through my first semester, I realized I was in the wrong place. I went and made an appointment with the dean of engineering and made all of the arrangements to transfer. So A, I was told not to apply to the University of Virginia, which I did. B, I wasn't told to apply. I got horrible career guidance along the way, all of the time. So I transferred to the engineering school. I majored in applied math, which they had in the engineering school. I minored in electrical engineering. I graduated from college, got a job with Duke Power. I was not hired as an engineer because, as I did not learn until after I graduated, my degree was not accredited by the engineering profession in applied math. And I also took the first of the two tests that are required to be licensed as a professional engineer. And when I got my letter from the Commonwealth of Virginia telling me that I had passed the test, unlike my first husband's letter, which said, "Congratulations, you've passed the test, here's your certificate," mine said, "Congratulations, you've passed the test when you demonstrate 2 years of increasingly progressive engineering experience, we'll send you the certificate." And at that point, I just said, this is ridiculous. I do not want any of these experiences to happen to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I found the Society of Women Engineers at a card table in a gymnasium at North Carolina State University, when I was doing on-campus recruiting for my first employer, Duke Power Company, I joined immediately. And I said, because they do two things. They provide professional development for women in the career, and they provide encouragement for kids to study STEM careers. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that nobody else experiences the lack of encouragement, the actually active discouragement, and then the outright discrimination that I experienced because of situations that, I didn't know.
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for taking it on, right? Like translating those difficult moments into seems like a like purpose, right? And here you are, and you've done what you've done. What held you in those difficult moments? What and particularly, like, what did you do? What did you do in those moments that gave you the strength?
I'll show them. They can't tell me no. They can't tell me I'm not good enough. They can't tell me I can't do these things.
Okay, so then that's a thought. How did that thought translate into behavior? Like, then you sat down and studied 5 more hours, or did you just like started having conversations with everybody you knew? Like, what did you do then?
Well, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I went into the engineering school when I got there, and I was an officer in the engineering school. I'm in the Engineering Honor Society. There's a service organization in the engineering school I was a member of. I represented the engineering school on the honor committee. Am I answering? I mean, I understand your question, but I don't think I just went out and did actions that said, see, you were wrong. Whoever they, I mean, and there's no they, because it's just society, and I'll just prove that you're wrong and that these things do not apply to me, and I'm going to show you that. So it's hard work, and it's through action, and it's through passion, and it's through.
And I know sometimes it can be disorienting because this is just the water you swim in, and here I am trying to break it down into little currents and little things. But so, for example, okay, so if you're out there to prove everybody wrong, what were you looking for opportunities to prove them wrong? Like, how did you know what was the action to take?
Well, for example, I go to work at Duke Power, and I'm in system planning, which, by the way, was a wonderful place for me to work. And I start getting involved in all kinds of organizations in the area. There was a Women in Energy, and I guess I helped organize. I mean, I'm always a doer. So I helped organize a conference and a workshop or whatever. And my boss came and saw me speak. And he said, "You're really good. We're going to get you trained. We're going to send you to Speakers Bureau training and get you trained." And so I went I got trained as a speaker, which, thank God, it served me so well. Right. I speak pre-COVID, I speak 50 to 100 times a year. And I do radio and I do television and I do all those kinds of things. And it's because somebody saw a skill that I had, but it was a skill that I demonstrated in the course of doing projects and doing. I join organizations. I take leadership positions in organizations. I enjoy them. I'm always selected. If there is ever, you go into this group and you pick the reporter. Well, I'm always the reporter. And I don't necessarily, sometimes I volunteer, but sometimes I just get selected. And so, I guess it's people see things in me that I don't necessarily understand that I project or that I have.
And so, no pun intended, if we reverse engineer that.
Nice, really nice.
Right? If we reverse engineer that, is that you get involved and you demonstrate the skills, and then people see what the potential of how they can get involved with you and how they can support you. Again, if I see well, how have you done what you've done? It's well, you sound to me like somebody that has sees opportunity to get involved. You do your best, right? Meaning how can you demonstrate your skill that you have in that moment? And then somehow life has also had a way to then support you, because I also saw in that interview so many people wanting to support you, right? They see your energy, your involvement, your enthusiasm, and they at least they seem excited to support you. Would that be inaccurate if I were to reverse engineer it and break it down?
I think everything that you just said was true. Yes.
Okay.
And there's never anything that's not my job. So if something in the early days of my Society of Women Engineers volunteer work, if that meant slapping on 400 labels on newsletters, and before stamps were adhesive and you had to lick the stamps to get them on, and put the return address labels on 400 pieces of mail, well, that wasn't beneath me to do that. Right. When I was a consultant and we had to get a proposal out, it was not beneath me to run the copy machine and to punch and bind and to make sure that the proposal got out on time. So and I have heard people, and I don't understand it. It's not my job. Well, if something has to be done, it goes back to why not me, and who else is going to do it? So if it has to be done, it has to be done. And if somebody else isn't going to do it, then I'm going to step up and do it because I know that it needs to be done.
So what is it that you're involved now that is your job? What are you engaged in that it's got to be you? So what are you up to these days?
Well, I'm mostly writing books right now. And for example, there's a book that's going to be submitted by the 30th of September, 2021, or else. And I have a co-author, but she's busy. And so I'm pretty much handling almost everything. And there's mind-numbing details that have to get taken care of in order to submit this book, with 20 chapter authors, each of whom has to have, we have a checklist. Each of these things has to be checked off. Each of them has to be done. I have to ensure that they're all done and that all of those get done for all 20 chapters in order for this book to get submitted. But we got the last 3 chapters over this weekend from a deadline that was June 30th, by the way. But enough, I pounded them enough and nicely enough that they actually delivered their chapters, and that'll get done. I'm also working on the Her Story Africa series, and that's a very interesting story if you want to hear it. But Her Story Tanzania is written, doesn't have a publisher yet. Her Story Zambia is written, doesn't have a publisher yet. Her Story Kenya is written, with a publisher, a signed contract, which I believe will be published in 2022. There are 54-ish, the number changes on occasion, countries in Africa. I'm planning to do a volume on each one. I'm currently doing the research on Her Story Africa. There is nothing like it. There are a few books I own them. They're actually right here in my office, Her Story Kenya books. They're not Her Story Kenya books. They are large coffee table books showing 100 women-ish. I think one of them has more than 200 women. But nobody does what I do, which is in context from kind of the beginning of history through now, chronologically telling the story of women and their accomplishments across all fields of endeavor, so that young women have role models and so that societies will value women.
Jill, in your day, what is constant in your day that allows you to do what you're doing right now?
What is constant in my day? I work out almost every day.
Okay.
I have a reconstructed left knee from tennis, which I still play singles, be playing tomorrow. And what I learned about 1999 was that if I don't exercise for 5 days in a row, my knee locks. And so that's really not acceptable. So now I work out every day. I sleep every night. I generally read the Wall Street Journal and the Denver Post, and I generally also do needlework. So my favorite is counted cross stitch, but I do other kinds as well.
So when you are, and maybe this, well, I'm thinking you're human, so it must happen, but tell me if it happens. Like, like you again, you said commitments are important for you, meeting deadlines. And so you have to get work done and maybe you get stuck. What helps you? What do you do in those moments? I hear you're accomplishing so much, and I'm sitting here with maybe the rest of us that are fighting resistance. It's just like, oh my God, how does she do it?
Well, it's very interesting. So because this happened yesterday, I actually attended the funeral of my co-author of a book that's coming out in 2022, Over, Under, Around, and Through: How Hall of Famers Surmount Obstacles, which is about how women in the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame faced the really very significant problems in their life. And by yesterday afternoon, I was kind of done. It was a pretty emotionally challenging day.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And so what did I do? Well, I didn't want to do I was supposed to be reading one of those chapters that came in for this book that's going out at the end of September. So I walked into a room in my bedroom and I saw the 2 things that I had put on my dresser of kind of to-do chores that I'd just been putting off and putting off and putting off. So I get to-do chores done when I don't want to do the other stuff. I scrub the kitchen floor. I clean the refrigerator. Yesterday I did mending. And so when there are things that I don't want to use whatever part of the brain that's required to do the writing or the research, or I don't want to sit in front of my computer and do stuff, then I go do needlework. I go clean the refrigerator. I go through the Tupperware and figure out what I want to use and what's not working anymore. I mean, so, and people say to me, Joe, you don't ever relax. And that's not exactly true. It's pretty close to true, but not exactly true, because people even make fun of me when they watch me do counted cross stitch. They say that's supposed to be relaxing and you don't make it look like it's relaxing. Oh, if I really want to relax, then I work a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which I started working when I started working jigsaw puzzles when I was 2. I just love them. And to me, that is the ultimate. Reading a book or doing a jigsaw puzzle are the 2 probably most relaxing things that I do. Although I still look at how many pages there are in a book. I still figure out how long it's going to take me to read it. And
it's so funny you say that, because in listening to you, I'm thinking again and trying to get like what's that nugget, right? That makes you tick. Like, what does needlepoint reading, scrubbing the floor, and engineering and math have to do with each other? Like, what if
I solve problems.
you love to solve problems?
I solve problems. That's what a jigsaw puzzle is. That's what counted cross stitch is. I mean, counted cross stitch, you have this pattern with all these little symbols on it, and then you count it onto the fabric. The fabric is evenly woven fabric, but it's blank. Yeah. It's solving puzzles. It's all solving puzzles, solving problems. That's what I do. And so if the problem is that no women are nominated, how do you solve that problem?
Right.
You nominate them.
I'm in the pause of, and so what is so ordinary about that? Like, so by solving problems or wanting to solve problems, you I mean, you can solve a problem to an electrical company. You can solve a problem like women are not being nominated. Does it happen like literally like you're cooking dinner and you apply that same like when you're cooking dinner? If there's a problem, I suppose.
Well, and I keep, and this is actually an interesting habit, I keep a pad of paper on the treadmill. So that if I come up with an idea or something that I need to remember to do, the pad of paper, there's one next to the treadmill. There's one next to where I sleep in the bed. I have pads of paper around so that when I need to write something down, I always have my to-do lists. When so that I know what I need to do so that I don't lose them. And then I write them down as soon as I think of them. And so is it solving a problem? Well, if I remember that I need a flu shot, actually that's on this list right now that I need a flu shot. That's why I just saw it when I picked it up. Then I write it down. If I think of something when I'm fixing lunch, which I did, I was having lunch and I thought, oh, I need to check this out for something that I'm doing right now. It's all, I'm always in a problem solving mode for almost everything.
What is that I would call compulsion? What is that compulsion to problem solve teaching you at this stage of your life? What are you learning from it? And what are you even growing into that is new?
Well, interesting that you use the word compulsion, but one of the things I've had to learn to do is I've had to learn to say no. And I have to learn actually both to say yes and to say no, not necessarily for the same things, but learning when there's an opportunity I want to pursue and learning when there's an opportunity that I don't want to pursue. And this is not that something is not my job. It's not the same thing. It's yes, there are so many different opportunities that all of us have the option to do. And I am going to tell you a story on that, that we need to know when to say no. So in 1997, I organized a panel called What Am I Going to Be When I Grow Up?, which was comprised of women primarily in their 40s and 50s at a Society of Women Engineers conference. And one of my friends on the panel's name is Meredith. And Meredith was a professional golfer. Given the choice, Meredith would play golf all the time, every day. But she got injured, she had heat stroke, all kinds of other things. So she ended up being an electrical engineer. But she's talking on this panel about how really what she wants to do is play golf. And so one of the young women, a college student who's sitting in the back, raises her hand and says, well, what if I don't want to play golf? And we all said, great, of the universe of opportunities and career choices and options that you're going to have in your life, you have eliminated one of them. Right. And so learning to say no, this just happened to me again. Somebody said about something. I mean, the one I can remember was a long time ago, but this happened also very recently to me. Somebody years ago, I nominated a woman, Marion Downs is her name, to the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame. She is the one that fought for newborn hearing screening. I mean, at birth, hearing screening, so that the infants could be treated for hearing loss immediately. Okay. She fought for it for 40 years. It's now the standard. And I was over at, there's a Marion Downs Hearing Center over at the Anschutz Medical Center. And I was over there the night I found out that she was going to be inducted, that my nomination was successful. And these people who are at the hearing center, who are members of her board, and they're all audiologists and they all work in the field, they said, oh, you're such a supporter of Marion and you should be on our board. And I went, no. I'm supporting Marion to be in the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame because that's recognition that she deserves. I'm not doing it because, I have no problem with newborn hearing screening. I think it's wonderful, but that's not my passion. That's not where I spend my time. I'm not an audiologist. I'm not a speech pathologist. I'm not a hearing professional. I have no expertise to provide you, and I'm not interested, but there are plenty of organizations in which I'm interested, but then still learning to say which opportunities to say yes to and which opportunities to say no.
Jill, how does this tie in back to your mom saying, do your best?
Well, that's a very good question, because if you are spread way too thin,
right,
then you can't give your best to all of the activities that you're involved with. And if you decide, and the number is different for every person, but if you decide that you can only focus on one activity outside of your work and career, then I think you have to, at least I do, you have to put yourself fully into that activity. Mm-hmm. And if more than one doesn't work for you, then you have to learn to say no to the other ones. But there's a very positive way to say that. You can say, no, not now. Now is not the right time for me. But it's possible that in a year, a couple of years, whatever it is, when I have completed my obligation to this organization, I would like to talk to you at that point in time to see if it's still a match between your organization and me.
Yeah, I love this. Again, it connects me to your energy of possibility, right? And not closing doors. Jill, I love this connection of, again, what I said earlier on, like there's an energy and like the machine that you got working for you that can accomplish so much. But just this last piece that you said is like I wonder for our listeners how you're relating it to your own life, and and that little piece that you just said is like, well, so you have sort of like what you do, maybe how you earn your living, and then what you're passionate about, what activity or activities, and what can you do that you then can do your best. So it's not about maybe about quantity, but about quality. And if you're passionate about, and if that's something that you have time for, and that you can give your best, then give it all your all. And then if
Right.
you have more for a second thing and for a third thing, well, you seem to have a lot of energy and a lot to do a lot of things, but that really relatable. Yeah.
Right. Well, there are earlier in my career, certainly, I knew people, and maybe they thought I was doing it too, but I know it looked like it, but I really wasn't. They got asked to do things, and so then it said on their resume, there was a little line that said they were a board member of whatever organization it was, but they never went to a meeting.
Right.
They never showed up. They never participated.
Right.
They didn't get it. There's tremendous value from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
In almost every organization like that, you learn skills. I mean, a lot of my skills that I have now, I learned through volunteer organizations. And so if you do that, well, and then you build yourself a reputation.
Well,
That's
again,
not good.
I'm going to bring us full circle of how we reversed engineered, it's like, yeah, get involved. Again, if we reverse engineer it, it's like, okay, so what is it that you're passionate about? What do you want to participate in? Then get involved, participate, show your skills. You're going to be noticed. Opportunities are going to show up. And then again, I'm still going back where you said, well, then meet your deadlines, follow through your commitments, and do your best. How did I do?
You did great. You did
Yes,
absolutely
I
great.
just did my best in trying to summarize. No, but I am so touched because I can see the path. I can see the path. Perhaps what I'm taking away more is the invitation to participate. Just get involved. Just go and whatever. Yeah, whatever you're passionate about, whatever. And maybe you don't know what you're passionate about, but if you're curious about something, just get involved. Is the message I'm receiving from you. What would you say? How would you close this conversation?
Well, I love where you ended up. And I would say everyone has a passion. And what ends up happening to people is that when they are engaged, when a person is engaged in areas that are their passion, it's like they're floating on air, and that time just stands still, because that's where they're supposed to be, and that's what they're supposed to be doing. And when you get to a place like that, I mean, it's just a wonderful place to be. So find those passions, and then, as you already summarized, do your best, meet your commitments, meet your deadlines, and you will get noticed. And people will recommend you for other things, but then you get to decide
Right,
if those are the right things for you to do.
Beautiful. Jill, thank you so much. What a journey. And again, I want to encourage our listeners to look you up, because I left out so much of what you've done. You have a fun, you have the people you're supported, what you've encouraged, what you've been involved in. You write blogs, articles. So truly, you are such a source of inspiration and encouragement for women. How can people reach you?
Well, I have multiple websites. That's actually kind of an interesting thing. My business website, I guess we'll call it, is techspeakinginc.com, techspeakinginc.com. Or you can get me through herstoryatimeline.com or Hollywood, Her Story, a time, HollywoodHerStory.com, another bestseller and award-winning book, Hollywood, Her Story, An Illustrated History of Women in the Movies.
Fantastic. Jill, again, thank you so much.
Eh.
And until next time, be curious, be inspired, and simplify the way.